So I built an AI receptionist that can answer the phone and book appointments into Google Calendar. So as you can see right here, I have my Google Calendar. Let me refresh this. So you can see that this is not fake, it's real. It's a real calendar. So now I'm going to call the AI and try to book an appointment for Saturday the 13th.
Thank you for calling Wellness Partners. This is Riley, your scheduling assistant. How may I help you today?
Hey, I would like to book an appointment for Saturday.
Our clinic is open Monday to Friday, so we don't have appointments available on Saturdays. Would you like to book an appointment for another day during the week?
Yes. Do you have any for Friday?
Let me check the available time slots for Friday. Could you please tell me which Friday you're interested in?
Friday the 12th.
We've got both morning and afternoon slots available for Friday. Do you prefer before noon or afternoon?
Afternoon. Is there any for 2 p.m.?
Yes, we do have slots available after 2 p.m. Would you like me to list a couple of specific times for you?
Can I get one for 3 p.m.?
Sure, I can set up an appointment for 3 p.m. on Friday. Could you please provide your full name, phone number, and date of birth to proceed with the booking?
My full name is John Brown. My date of birth is December the 12th, 1955. And my phone number is 929-732-6094.
Your appointment is confirmed for Friday, December 12th at 3 p.m. Thank you, John Brown. Have a great day.
No problem. And as you can see, the appointment is right here with my phone number. Now, notice I tried to book it on Saturday, but he said there's no appointment on Saturday. The reason why is because in the database, I set the opening hours to Monday to Friday. So the business is closed on Saturday, which is why the AI said that there's no appointment on Saturday. So even though I tried to book on Saturday, the AI knew that the business is not open on Saturday, which is why it told me that it can't book an appointment on Saturday. So yeah, the AI basically is smart enough to make its own decision. Okay, first let's start with vapi. Now, vapi is basically the AI agent. It's basically like the brains of everything. It's going to make all the decisions. It's going to talk to the customer and do everything. All of that is done within vapi. Now, what you're going to use N8N for is to basically connect to your Google Calendar. And there's actually a very good reason for it, because vapi, they do have their own native Google Calendar integration, but there's actually a downside to it. So I'm going to explain that in a little bit more details later. But yeah, this is vapi. You can go to the pricing section. If you scroll down, yeah, right here. So the way this works is that it's basically a bunch of different tools. So you have like speech to text, text to speech, the LLM, that AI and everything that you're going to use, and everything has its own cost. And so right here, you can just select the different options, and it will show you like how much it's going to cost to basically, set up and run your vapi agent. What you want to do next is that you want to sign up and create an account. So I believe, yeah, you can click sign up, and you do get a free $10. However, this is just a one-time $10, like it doesn't refill or anything, and this is basically just for testing. So once the $10 is finished, then that's it. You're gonna have to start paying to use this, and there's no monthly subscription either. It's a pay-as-you-go usage. No, signing up is really easy. You just need an email and password, and that's it. And I'm gonna go to my account. So this is what it looks like. So right here is your AI agent. You can click to create a new agent, but I'm going to use the one that I have set up right here. Now at the top of here, you see the cost per minute based on the selections that you have, because as I said, there's a bunch of different parts like the text to speech and the speech to text and all of that stuff. So everything combined costs around 13 cents per minute. Now, of course, the price is going to vary depending on what models you pick. So if you pick more expensive models, then it's going to be more expensive. If you pick cheaper models, it's going to be cheaper. But the thing is, the cheaper models are usually not great, like they're terrible. Like I tried to use Google Gemini, and yeah, it was unusable, like it was just horrible. So you can't just pick cheaper models to get a cheaper cost, because then, you might end up with a stuff that's completely horrible. But you also can pick the most expensive ones because those ones have a lot of latency, which is not great for AI voice. So if you're putting this on your website, then it's not really an issue. But if you're going to be answering phone calls, then you need the AI to respond instantly, right? So you don't want something where whenever the customer speaks, the AI is going to take like 5-10 seconds to answer, right? Like that's not good. That's horrible, right? So if you pick like the expensive models, they usually have like a lot of latency, and then that's going to be an issue. So you basically have to find like the right balance between latency and cost. Now, typically you want, for voice agents, you want something that's around 1,000 milliseconds or less. The smaller the milliseconds, the better it is. But 1,000 or less is usually like the sweet spot. Anything over that, it becomes a little bit too slow and noticeable and just not great, especially at 1,500. Like if you're at 1,500, then yeah, that's horrible. Typically you want like 1,000 or less. First, let's go over the models. So click right here. As you can see, there's a bunch of different models. You can play around with it. But the one that I'm using right now is OpenAI because, it works really great. And you can select different models. The one that I'm using right now is the 4.0 cluster. It's really great. And so far it seems accurate. There's no hallucinations or anything. So yeah, it's the one that I'm using. But of course you can use other ones if you want. But you can just scroll through and pick whatever one you want. But I'm using 4.0 cluster. So right here is where the AI, the message that the AI will say first. And this right here is basically instructions for the AI. So this is, you tell the AI how it's going to react, right? So like what it's going to do, like what its purpose, basically the instructions, right? So this is everything right here. Like this will depend on like what exactly you're doing because every business have different requirements and stuff. So this is going to depend on what you're doing, but basically this is basically the instruction, right? So for example, you can say, hey, if you want to book an appointment, you call this tool, or you can answer these questions. Like for example, down here we have the knowledge base. So this is like information about the business. So if a customer asks like, hey, what are your opening hours, then the AI will look right here and be like, okay, Monday to Friday. So yeah, you just put all this instruction, the information, everything that AI needs to know, and how to operate, how to answer questions, how to book appointments, all of that stuff goes right in here. Now next we go to voice. Now the one that I'm using is 11 Labs, and the reason why is because they have the this right here, which is the flash mode, which basically massively reduces latency. So yeah, and it works really great too. Like I didn't have any issues with it. So yeah, this is the best one you want to use if you're using voice agent because of the reduced latency. Like the other ones that are there, like they're good, but the latency is horrible. Like with the OpenAI one, I was getting like 1,600 milliseconds, which is completely unusable. So for the fastest speed, you want 11 Labs, the flash version right here. Now you can also select your voice. Just pick whatever voice you want. Doesn't really matter. The next is transcriber. So this is gonna transcribe the customer's voice into text for the AI to understand it, right? Now I tried a few of them and DeepGram seems to be the best so far. I tried OpenAI and that one was just horrible. OpenAI was basically unusable. It's just horrible. So DeepGram is the one that I'm using, but there's other options too. Of course, you can play around and see which one you like, but yeah, this is one it's really great. And make sure to turn on background denoising. So basically, if there's noise in the background, then the transcriber can still pick up the customer's voice, which surprisingly this works really well. Like I tried it with a movie playing in the background, and it could still recognize everything that I was saying. So it works really well. So I recommend turning this on. Now the tool section is where you add the tools. Now I'm going to explain this section later. But yeah, this is where you basically add your tools. So you click right here and then select the tools. But right now I have no tools. Well, if you're doing this for the first time, then you're not going to have any tools. So this is going to be blank. But I'm going to show you how to create the tools. Yeah, and that's basically it. Now, so over here we have some tools. Now what are the tools? Okay, now let's create some tools. Now if you click on create tools, like these are the different tools that you have. And yeah, these are basically like tools that can help the AI to do certain tasks. Like for example, we have like N call tool right here and transfer call and so on. Now in our case, we're going to be connecting to N8N. So we're going to need a custom tool, which I'm going to show you the setup. But before we get to that, you notice that down here we have like Google Calendar and Google Sheets. So you may be wondering, okay, why would we use N8N when we have the integrations right here? Now the problem that I run into is that it seems like with vapi, you can only connect one Google account, right? So if you're using this for your personal use, then this is the best way to go about it because it's a lot easier. The setup is a lot less annoying, right? However, the issue comes in like if you're going to sell this to business owners, then obviously you're going to need to connect to multiple Google accounts, which I don't think you can do inside of vapi. In vapi, you can only connect one Google account. So if you're going to sell this, then you basically need N8N because you cannot connect multiple accounts inside vapi. So that's the main reason why we're using N8N, even though vapi has their own integration. So you want to click custom tools, which I already have some tools created right here. So I'm not going to create a new tool, but basically when you click create custom tool, you're going to go on a page like this. So you give the tool a name, can name it whatever you want. Now this tool will set appointment. This tool will set appointment. So whenever the AI want to set an appointment in your Google Calendar, then it will call this tool and you basically give it a description and scroll down, you give it some parameters. So these are like the data that the AI is going to send over to the tool. So to book an appointment, we're going to need like date and name and note and phone number, right? So these are like the data the AI is going to send over to the tool so we can book the appointment. Now down here we have the server URL. Now this is the URL. So the way it works is that the AI is going to send a request to the webhook inside of N8N. This URL, it points to that webhook inside of N8N. So to get this, you're going to have to go inside of N8N, which I'm going to show you how to do later. But yeah, this is basically the webhook that points to the, it's basically the link that points to the webhook inside of N8N. So the AI will basically send its message to this URL right here. And that's basically it. You just click save. Now right here we have another tool which is calling the slots, and this basically it checks if there's any free slots. So let's say you want to book an appointment on Friday, right? You first need to check if there's any slots on Friday. So these tools will check for that, and it's basically the same as the previous one. So we'll send over a date. We send over the date that we want to check. So for example, we want to check on Friday, we say we send over the date Friday, and then in N8N we take that date and then we'll check on that date to see if there's any free slots. And the same thing goes right here, the webhook link that the AI is going to send the request to. Okay, now let's talk about running N8N. Now first of all, I'm not doing this on the cloud. I'm doing this locally, so the steps to do it locally is a little bit more complicated than on the cloud. On the cloud it's a lot easier and straightforward, but it's basically a setup process. Now to install N8N, you're gonna need Docker. Now I'm not gonna go into details on how to install it using Docker because there's already a bunch of videos talking about this stuff, but I'm basically gonna go over like errors that you may run into and stuff like that. But if you want to learn how to install this stuff, there's a bunch of videos on YouTube already talking about this stuff. So I'm not going to go into details with that. But I'm going to go over some stuff that you need to know and issue that you may run into. Now the first issue is that when you click on Docker to open it, then nothing might, it may not open, right? So what you want to do is that you want to go down here. You want to click on this button right here and click right here. And this will open the GUI. So yeah, if you click on Docker and nothing happens, then make sure you do this. Now once you're here, you want to click on run image. Now the thing is, once you run an image, then it creates a container, right? And the container is stored in here. Now when you close this, right, and you're opening it again for the second time, you don't want to click on run image, because what happens is that it's going to create a new container, and this container is it's going to wipe your credentials and everything, right? So whenever you run N8N for the first time, it's going to ask you to create an account, and that account is going to save in the container that it's created. But if you click on run image again, it's going to create a new container, and then that container is going to assume that you're new to N8N, and it's going to ask you to sign in again and everything. So when you're running it for the second time, you want to use the container that you opened the last time. So in my case, the last container I used this one right here. So I'm going to run this one. Okay, so one thing that I unfortunately can't show you right now, I'm not sure why, but I'm not getting the pop-up. But usually when you're doing this, especially for the first time, there's going to be a pop-up that asks you for the port number. Now, this port number right here, the 5678, this is the default port number for N8N. Now, you have to use this default port number. If you use any other port number, then you're going to have an issue with the Google credentials, which I will explain later. But basically, the Google credential is only works with the default port number. If you use anything else, it's not going to work. Now, another thing is that there's a field that asks for the port number. Now, you may assume that if you just click accept, then it's going to automatically fill in the default port number, but that is not the case. You have to enter a port number into the field, because if you leave it blank, then the container is going to start, but you're going to be unable to access the container because it doesn't have a port number. So make sure you enter the port number and make sure you use the default port number, which is 5678. If you use anything else, then it's not going to work with your Google credentials. Now, the next thing you're going to need is a program called N8N. Now, the reason why is because N8N is running locally on your computer, however vapi is on the internet on a server. So basically, the server cannot communicate with N8N inside your computer. Now, you're going to need N8N to basically expose the N8N inside your computer to the internet so vapi can reach it. Now, this is a free program, so you don't have to worry about paying for it. So you just want to go here and sign up. It's free. You just need an email and password. Now, once you do that, you're going to be on this page right here, and you want to click install from Microsoft Store. And then you want to click install, which, as you can see, I already have it installed. But once it's finished installing, you notice that when you click open, nothing happens. The reason why is that for some reason you cannot open it from here. You have to go to search N8N, and that's how you open it, and you should be on a page like this. Now, once you're on this page, you want to follow the instructions. So right here where it says run this command, you just copy the command and paste it in here and run it to add your credentials, which mine is already there, so I'm not going to do it again. Now, to get the link, what you want to do is that you want to run this right here that says ngrok.exe http, and then you want to put the port that you're using. So in our case, we're using 5678, so we do ngrok.exe http 5678, then click enter. Now we're going to be on this page. Now you want to copy this link right here that says forwarding, copy it, and you can paste this in your notepad. So basically, if you type this link into Google, it's basically the same as typing in localhost into Google, except this link is on the internet and localhost is not. So basically, these two links are essentially the same thing. Now, how do you use this in N8N? So I'm going to show you that. So first, you want to go to N8N, and you can create a new workflow, but this is the one that I this is the one that I created, and I'm going to explain this stuff later. But first, you want to go to your webhook, and in your webhook, you're going to get a it's gonna be on get. By default, it's going to be on get, and you want to switch it to post, and you're going to get a link up here, and you want to copy this link, then go back and paste it. Okay, so this right here is the link to your webhook. Now, the issue with this is that it's a localhost link, which is inside the computer. So obviously, vapi cannot reach this link. Now, remember what I said, that this link that you get from N8N, this is on the internet, and it's the same as the localhost link. So what you want to do is that you want to take everything after the slash, copy it, paste it at the end of the N8N link. And so this right here is going to be the link that you're going to copy and paste inside vapi. And so this link right here, it basically points to this webhook right here. So whenever vapi wants to call this webhook, it basically runs this link right here. So that's how it works. So you'd copy this link, just copy it. You go to vapi, just go down here. So in this case, set appointments. So you'd paste it for set appointments right here. And you do the same thing for calendar slots. So yeah, so you create another webhook for calendar slots, which I have right here. So calendar slots which I have right here, and you basically add your webhook, get the link and do the same thing that I just showed you and paste it for the calendar slots, and the same thing for set appointment. So each webhook has its own URL, and you do the same thing for each URL. And so that's how you would set up ngrok. Oh, one thing I forgot to tell you is that I ran into an issue with ngrok where it was getting blocked by my firewall. Now to solve this, there's two ways to solve this. The first way is there's some stuff that you can configure in your firewall, like disable your firewall or whatever. I decided not to do this because disabling your firewall is never a good thing to do. So I ended up using the second solution, which is that if you have a cell phone, you can connect to your cell phone and use the mobile hotspot, and then you can connect your computer to your mobile hotspot, and then that will allow ngrok to work. So that's the solution that I use. But if for whatever reason you don't have a cell phone with a mobile hotspot, then you're gonna have to go into your firewall and configure some stuff. Now, if you want to know how to do that, you can ask ChatGPT to help you with that stuff, but I didn't do it, so I don't really know how that stuff works. I use the method with the mobile phone. Okay, the next step is setting up your Google credentials. So before you do all of this, you need to link your Google account. So you want to click on right here, click on credential, and you want to find Google Calendar. Continue. Now this right here is why I said you need the default port. Now before I explain this, you want to click on Docs. You want to scroll down, and there's this video right here. So I'm not going to explain the entire process on how to link your Google account. Reason being is that there's this video right here that is very straightforward. So all you need to do is just watch this video right here where they explain everything. And just follow the steps. But there's a few issues that you may run into, which I'm going to tell you about. But everything I know to link your account is right here in this video. So just watch this video. Okay, this is it right here. So there is a redirect URL that you're going to need to enter into Google, right? And the redirect URL is this URL right here that they give you. Now notice that the URL is using the default port, which is the 5678. Now the thing is, you cannot change this URL right here. You cannot change it, you cannot modify it or anything. Now this is an issue, right? Because let's say you're using a different port like 5680, right? Which I was using when I was doing this the first time. N8N will be running on 5680, but as you can see, the URL right here is 5678. So basically URL mismatches, and so if you enter like 5680 into Google, then it's not going to work because the one that N8N is using is 5678. However, if you had 5678 but you're not running on this port, then that's also going to mismatch and you're going to get an error. So basically, if you're going to use a Google credential, you need to use 5678 because that's the one N8N gives you, and you can't change it. You don't have a choice, so you have to use this port. Now the next issue you might run into, let me see if I can find it. Okay, so the next issue that you may run into is this step right here when you're linking your account to N8N. Now I got a screen that was saying something about a warning or whatever, and at first I was confused, but basically at the bottom of the screen somewhere down here, which he didn't get this issue but I got it, but at the bottom of the screen down here, you're going to see like a tiny little button or a link that says continue anyway. So you just want to click on that. If you do get a pop-up saying something about unsafe or getting blocked or whatever, you just click that tiny little link and it will allow you to proceed to the step where you link your account. But that's basically it. Just follow the video and everything is straightforward and you should be able to link your account. Okay, now let's go over the N8N workflow, which I basically built this entire thing on my own because no one else was showing this stuff. Everyone who actually did this stuff, they were gatekeeping it behind the paywall. And not only that, but there are some major issues that no one really talks about, and I'm not really sure why. Like, you'll notice that a lot of their videos, they basically show the AI agent in a specific scenario, because there are other scenarios out there that, like, I'm going to explain later and show you guys what I mean. But basically, I ran into some issues that no one talked about, and I had to like solve it on my own. Now, the workflow that I have right here is I'm not going to recreate the entire thing over again. I'm just going to show you a previous execution that I did, but everything is already built out, so I'm not going to like rebuild the entire thing again. I'm just going to show you how it works. So first, you have your webhook right here, Which, by the way, if you have no idea how N8N works, then I would suggest you go watch a beginner video and learn the basics before you watch this. But I'm not going to go into details about how N8N works or any of that stuff. In this video, I'm just going to explain everything that I did. Okay, so first you have your webhook. Now for this workflow, we check for the available slots. So that's what we're doing right here. So first we have the data right here that comes in from vapi. So this is everything that comes in. And as I mentioned before, you set it to post. And for the respond method right here, you want to set it to use respond to webhook node, right? You want to select this option because you want to respond to vapi after the workflow is finished, right? The other options, like they basically respond to vapi before the workflow is finished, right? And the issue with this is that if you respond before the workflow is finished, then you won't get the final result on, and that final result won't be sent to vapi, right? So you want to send the result to vapi only after everything is finished. So you want to select this option for responding. Then you want to get the Google Calendar node, the one that says get many events. So select this node. Now this is the data from vapi. Now you want to scroll down to where you see date. So first you want to go over here and you want to select on expression, which you should see right here. It's not there right now because this is like the different stuff, but when you're building this stuff, you're going to see like an expression right here. You want to click on that. Then you want to drag the date right here. So scroll down and see body, message, tool calls. Scroll down and see date. So this is the date. So typically, alright, so the way it works is that the AI is going to check if there's any slot for a specific date, right? So for example, let's say you're talking to the AI, right? And you say to the AI, hey, I want to book an appointment on Friday. Now the AI is going to be like, okay, Friday. Friday is like what, the 12th? So it's going to send over this date and say, hey, I want to check if there's any slots available for the 12th, right? So that's going to be right here. And you want to drag that and drop it right in here. So that date is going to go right here. First of all, let me explain how does this node even works. Now what we're doing is that we're going to get every single event for a specific day, right? And so after we get the events, we're going to calculate, okay, what are the free slots, right? Now, because remember, we are booking an appointment, right? And unfortunately, there's no tool that that allows you to get like all the free slots, right? Like, there's no tools in Google that says, okay, I want you to go to this specific day and get all the free slots where there are no events booked, right? There's no tools that does that, right? So we're basically going to have to do it manually on our own. And the way we're going to do it is that we're going to get a date. The AI is going to send over a date. And for that date, we're going to check, okay, how many events are booked on this specific day, right? So this is what this node is doing, right? It's getting all the events that is booked on that specific day, right? So as you can see, this says after, right? Because the way this node works is that it takes two parameters. It takes after and before. So it's like all the events after this date and all the events before this date, right? Since we drag the date and drop it right here, one thing you notice down here, so this is the actual date. And as you can see, by the way, this is army time. Okay, so this is what army time looks like. For those of you who don't know, it basically uses like 24 hours instead of like the regular like 1 to 12, right? So in this case, as you can see, we're gonna start at midnight, like 12. So at 12 a.m. midnight, that's when we start, right? And we end at we basically end at what's that time? Yeah, basically at 24 hours. So essentially, we're checking, we're looking for all the events for the entire day of the 12, right? So this right here is the 12, on the 12th of December, right? So we're checking, okay, on the 12th of December, we want all the events for that specific day, right? And obviously the day starts at 12 a.m. and it ends at like, basically like at 12 a.m., right? So 12 a.m. to basically 12 a.m. the next day, right? As you can see, this switches to 13, so this is the next day. So it checks for all the events for that entire day, if that makes sense. Now, right here, we need to do some modifications, right? You want to take this right after you drag and drop this right here. You want to take it and drag it and drop it right here. Now, if you look closely, you see that. We have right here that says to date and time. So you know what that you want to add date dot to date and time Then you add like another dot, then you do plus 1 day, right? Because the way it works is that, again, this is like 12 a.m., right? And so this is the start time, and then the end time is like 24 hours later, right? Hopefully this is making sense, but we're basically going to add 1 day. So we're going to add like 1 day to the starting date, right? Because again, we're checking for a specific time period, right? Which is 24 hours. So we start at 12 a.m. and we end at 12 a.m. the next day. So we add 1 day, which is like 24 hours. And this is going to be our end time. And right here we add your time zone, which in my case is New York. But obviously you set your time zone based on where you are. And then when you run that, then you're going to get an output right here with all events for that specific day. Now let me show you what that looks like on the calendar. Okay, so this is my calendar, and as I said, we were checking for the 12th, which is Friday. And as you can see, we have 1 appointment on Friday. And if you go back to vapi, not vapi, you go back to N8N, you see you return 1 appointment, because for the entire day of the 12th, we only have 1 appointment. That's it. And it returns a 1 appointment. Now, how do we know the free slots? Now, for this, you're going to need some custom code, because they know. Now, you can ask AI to do it for you. You can return to the AI and say, okay, on this day, we only have 1 event. So based on this, you can calculate the free times. So you can do this. No, the issue with this is that AI can hallucinate. And this is a big issue, because the AI can calculate like the wrong slots and so on, and basically give the customer fake information or whatever. And so typically the best practice is to try to do everything manually if possible, to avoid errors and so on, because if you let the AI do everything, then AI can hallucinate and cause errors and so on. So if you want to be lazy, you can just ask the AI to calculate it for you, but the best practice is to calculate it on your own. And unfortunately, to do this, you're going to need some custom code. Now, right here, notice that we have an if statement. Now, this is basically, like I would say, like a bug that I ran into, and it's something that no one else talks about. Now, if you watch the other videos, you notice that everyone, they basically, when they show how this AI works, they show the AI working while there's other events booked, right? So every single time, if you look at their calendar, you notice that there's other events booked on the calendar. Not a single person does it with an empty calendar. Everyone always has stuff booked on the calendar, right? And there's a very good reason for that. As I said before, the way the get many nodes work is that it gets all the events for a single day and retain all of those events. Now, here's the thing. What if there's no events for that day? Then what's going to happen is that Google is going to return nothing, because there's no events, right? Now, that right there is an issue, because if nothing returns, then the AI is not going to get a response. And if the AI doesn't get a response, it's going to assume that, okay, since I didn't get a response, then there must be an error or something, right? And so that's obviously an issue, right? Because you didn't get back any events, what that means is that the entire day is free, right? But the AI, it doesn't know that, because it gets back no answer, so it assumes that there is some kind of error, right? Because obviously, if you run a program and you get no result, you're gonna assume that, okay, this must be broken, there must be an error, because there's no result, right? And so that right there is basically a bug, and you notice that every single YouTuber who does this, their calendar is not completely empty, because if it was empty, then it would throw an error, and then AI would be confused and not know what's going on. And so this is an issue that I ran into, and I ended up fixing it using an if node. Now, there's actually a few ways you can fix it, but the solution that I ended up going it is so if Google does return results, then it will send results to the code node, which will calculate all the free slots. However, if there's no results that return, then we have a different path. Now, this right here is technically you don't have to do this. I just do this for safety purposes, because me personally, I'd rather be safe as possible and catch all errors, because here's the thing, right? You could set it up and say that, okay, if no results are returned, then that means that all the slots are free, and you can just send it back to the AI and be like, hey, all the slots are free, right? But here's the thing. If you don't get a result, then you have no idea why you don't get a result, right? So basically, just because you didn't get a result, that doesn't mean that there are no events, right? It could be that there's an error on Google's end, right? Like maybe, there's an issue with Google or whatever. And so basically, you don't want to just assume that just because you don't get back a reply from Google, that means that all the slots are free, right? It could be an error, right? And so just to be safe, what I did, I added a get available node, right? So what this node does is that, okay, if no result is returned, then we're going to check to make sure that the slots are free. Now what this node does is that it checks availability. Essentially, it checks a specific time period and see that, okay, are there any events within this specific time period? So if there's no events, then you return true. If there are events, then you're going to return false. So what we do is that, okay, let's say nothing returns. We already know that, okay, nothing returns, then one of two things. One, there are no events or there's an error, right? So now we want to check to make sure that, okay, there's actually no events and it wasn't an error. So we do the same thing that we did with the get many events. It's basically the same thing with the start time and the end time. Now the difference is that instead of doing it, I guess you could do the same thing. So what we're going to be doing right here is that we're going to be checking like the working hours, right? So for example, if a business owner works from like 8 to like 5 p.m., then we're going to check between those time frame. Right? As you can see right here, we have plus 8 hours and plus 17 hours. Again, we're doing army time and 17 hours. 17 is like 5. So, let's say the business owner works like 8 to 5. So we check between 8 and 5. And we say, okay, are there any events between 8 and 5? If the answer is true, then we know that, okay, something is definitely wrong because we have an event between 8 and 5, but for whatever reason, we got like no result. But either way, that lets you know that, okay, there is an event and, something is wrong. However, if we get back false, then that lets you know that, okay, there is definitely no events between 8 and 5, and so the entire day is free, and we have like the entire day is like a free slot. And so that's basically what this does. And again, it's like the same parameters as before. Now let's go to the coding. Now this is the annoying part. It literally took me over 6 hours to figure this stuff out. Now I'm gonna be honest, this code was written by ChatGPT, and I would recommend you just ask ChatGPT to write this code for you, but I'll put it up on the screen. And also this stuff is being, like, gurus are gatekeeping this stuff. Like, if you want to get this stuff from other gurus, you have to sign up for the school community, which costs hundreds of dollars. Like, no one is giving away this stuff for free. But yeah, here it is if you want it for free. I don't really care if you take this or not. I'm not gonna go into too much details as to how this stuff works because it's really annoying and I don't want to go over it. If you want to know how it works, you can just ask ChatGPT to explain it for you. But I will go over the most important part. First of all, you set the time right here. So first of all, what this code does is that it goes over. So after you check the events, right, and the Google Calendar return the events, you look at the events and you say, okay, based on these events, what slots during the day are free, right? So this code basically calculates all the free slots during that day and it returns those free slots to vapi. So right here you set like the time. So again, right, let's say the business owner works from like 8 to 5. So the day starts at 8, ends at 5. So we're going to check between this time right here. So that's really the only thing that you really need to know. The rest of the stuff, you want to understand it, then you can like just ask ChatGPT to explain it for you. But there's one important part that you need to know, and it's the annoying part that took me like 6 hours to figure out. And it's this part right here. Now, if you go to vapi and you click on docs, and I scroll all the way down, right here. Now, as it turns out, is that vapi is very picky in the sense that when you return the result to vapi, it has to be in this exact format. Okay, like you cannot put a wrong comma, a wrong bracket. Like it has to be exactly this, or vapi is gonna reject it. Like if it's not exactly this, then it's gonna throw an error, and the AI is gonna be like nothing. Like it's gonna return like nothing to the AI. Like if you have a comma in the wrong place, a bracket in the wrong place, like it's not gonna work. You need this exact format, and this is the thing that took me like 6 hours to figure out because it's not that easy. It's very tricky to figure out. Now after a bunch of different solutions and so on, this is the solution that I landed on. Now first of all, the issue that I had, hold on, let me see if I can show you. So this is a previous execution from when I was trying to figure this stuff out. So this is the issue that I had, right? So when my program runs, it was sending 3 different results. Now notice the format of the results. It's in the same format that vapi asks for. It's in a similar format, right? As you can see, it's a similar format with tool call and result. However, this is incorrect, right? The reason being is that you have 3 different outputs. Right? vapi, it does not want 3 different outputs. Even if the format is correct, just the fact that it's 3 different outputs, that is incorrect. It's not going to work. vapi only expects 1 output, and that's it. You cannot have 3, 5, nothing, right? You only need 1, and that's the issue that I was having, because my program was outputting 3. Like, even though the format is right, as you can see, I have the tool call ID and the result. Even though it was the right format, I was doing it 3 times, and that was throwing an error. So you cannot do this. You only need 1 output. Any more than that, it's going to throw an error. You put the wrong bracket, wrong comma, like anything, it's going to throw an error. So this is incorrect. So yeah, this is the exact format and the only format that you can use. Otherwise, you're going to get an error. Now the way this works is that I basically, first of all, when you have the tool call ID, which this stuff is in the code. So when vapi sends over the request, it sends a tool call ID. You want to include that in your output to the vapi AI right here, which everything is in the code right here. You don't need to worry about this stuff. And again, if you ask ChatGPT to write this stuff for you, it will include this stuff, right? So you don't really need to worry about it. But for the results, we basically have like 1 line where I include all the free slots, right? So all the free slots, as you can see right here, have available free slots are, and I include all the free slots. So like 8 to 11 and 12 to 5. So yeah, these are all the free slots, as you can see, for Friday, right? So all the free slots that I have for Friday. So the code, it calculates all those free slots and put it in this 1 line. You cannot have like multiple lines with different free slots, right? Everything has to be inside this result right here. You cannot have like multiple different results or so on. Everything is right here. Now after you do that, you need to respond to the webhook. Now you want to click on JSON and click on expression, and you want to go over here, and then right here you want to take so this is what the result from the code looks like, and this is assuming that you're using the same code that I'm using. So this is what your output looks like, and you basically want to take the tool call ID, which you can also get it from the calendar search too. So like, you don't have to put this inside the code, you can get it from down here. So it doesn't really matter where you get it from, but just make sure you have it. And you just take the tool call ID and you put it right here, and you take the results and you put it right here, and you have to use this exact format. Again, if you use anything else, it is not going to work. You need this exact format right here. And yeah, you basically do this, and then that's basically it. You send it off, and this goes to the vapi agent, and the vapi agent knows that, okay, these are the free slots right here. And for the get availability, okay, so for get availability, it usually return a true or false, right? So if it's false, you know that, okay, there's an event booked, and you know there's no free slots, or there's an error or something. And if it returns true, then you know that, okay, the entire day is a free slot. And so you just the format is the same thing again. You add the calendar ID, not the calendar ID, the tool call ID. You can get it from the calendar slots, and then you add the results. So I have like results for available slots, and then I put right here. So if it's false, I know that, okay, there are no free slots. But if it's true, then I know that, okay, you know, there is a free slots or something like that. So for creating an event, you know, once you get this stuff out, then everything else is easy. So it's literally the same thing again, where you create another webhook with the link, and you do post, respond to webhook node, and then you know you get the data and you drag the time. Now since you're creating an event, so yeah, you put like the date right here, and right here is the arguments. Now remember over here we have these arguments of the date, the name, the phone, and so on. Obviously this stuff is customizable depending on what you're doing, but this is the one that we have right now. And you drag the date, right? So as you can see, it sends over the date that you want to book the appointment along with the time. I know there's a time, so we drag everything right here. So the appointment starts at, in this case, 11 a.m. And then since the appointment is like 1 hour, now obviously this is going to depend on your your stuff. So the appointment could be like 30 minutes, 2 hours, depending on what you want. But in our case, it's 1 hour. So we take the same thing again. We take the same date right here. And then we do a 2 date plus, and then we had 60 minutes for 1 hour. So the appointment, essentially the appointment starts at 11 a.m. and ends at 12 p.m. That's 1 hour, right? So that's how you do that. Now down here you can add additional information for the additional fields. So which is it? So for the summary you can add like the name of the person. So in this case we have like John is the name. So you drag name, drop it in here, and then you can add a description where you can add like the phone number, and I mean it depends on what you're doing, right? So obviously, like let's say you're a car detailer, right? You might need the name of the car and a description of the job or whatever. It depends on what you're doing, right? But yeah, in this case we just add like the phone number, and then the appointment is booked. An appointment is booked, it returns a status confirmed. So you just want to send this over to the AI to let the AI know that okay, the booking is confirmed. And to do that, same thing as before, you add the tool call ID. Again, this exact same format, you cannot change it, but you add the tool call ID like you did before, and then the status, it just says status is, and you add the status from the create event, which I showed you earlier. And then that's basically it. And yeah, that's basically the entire workflow. Okay, so quick update. So I actually ran into an issue. Now remember before I mentioned that the get many events, what it does is that it returns all the events for a specific day. Now if you don't have an event for a specific day, then it's going to return a empty results. Now it turns out that this is actually an issue. Now the issue that I was running into is that if it returns no results, then no result is going to get sent to the if node. Now the way N8N works is that for a node to get triggered, it needs some kind of event or data. So basically, if the get many events returns no data, then no data is going to go into the if node. And if no data goes into the if node, then the if node is not going to get triggered at all. So these over here will not get triggered at all. So that's the issue I was getting, is that if the get many event returns no results, then nothing gets into the if node, and the if node never gets triggered. So the vapi agent never gets any results or anything. Now to fix this, it's very simple. So you're going to get many events, then you go to settings, and you want to turn on this right here that says always output data. So basically, even if Google Calendar doesn't return any results, then the node will automatically output some empty data. Now this also creates another issue. Now in the if node, the code that I had before was it checks the length of the item. Now as I said before, if Google Calendar returns nothing, then we're going to output an empty data. Now the empty data is basically an empty array. Now the code that I had before, it checks the length of this array. Now it turns out that even though this array is empty, the array still has a length of 1. So the issue I was running into is that before I was checking that, okay, if the length of the array is greater than 0, then the expression for this is true. But since the length of the empty array is also 1, it also triggered the true. And so it sends like basically empty data to the code node, which also throws an error because there's no data there, even though the if node is sending it over, if that makes sense. So basically the if node was sending over the array, but the array was actually empty. But even though the array is empty, it still has a length of 1. So it was triggering the true path for this one. So to fix it, I ended up changing it and use this code right here. So this code, instead of checking the length of the array itself, it checks like if there's actually any value inside the array. So if the array, even though the array has a length of 1, we check inside the array like, okay, is there actually any objects or keys inside this array? And if there's no objects or keys, then we know that, okay, this array is empty. So we're going to go to the false path. However, if there's any keys or events inside of this array, then we know that, okay, there's some data inside it and it's true. And so we send it over to the code node. And so yeah, that's basically how you would solve that issue.